Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Shabbat Shalom, Cantor, Rhodes, and Shabbat Shalom to our wonderful family band that's in the sanctuary. And Happy New Year as well to everybody. Cantor, Rhodes, and I are so delighted to be here with all of you to welcome Shabbat this evening. And we wanted to make sure to mention that you can follow along in the prayer book, which will be just above where you are watching the service. And the link is also in the chat if you are able to access the chat. And you can just follow along with us during the service. When we have prayers where it's customary for us to stand, if it's comfortable for you to do so, we'll invite you to stand, but it's not necessary. And it's my pleasure now to invite Andrea and Joel Stillman to kindle the Shabbat lights. They are very well matched. They've been married for a long time, but also Andrea is a past president of the Women of Temple Rhodes Shalom, and Joel is the current president of the Men of Temple Rhodes Shalom. So we're so delighted to have you with us. Thank you so much for lighting the candles. We're on page 2.
As these Shabbat candles give light to all who behold them, so may we, by our lives, give light to all who behold us.
As their brightness reminds us of the generations of Israel who have kindled light, so may we, in our own day, be among those who kindle light.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu le'adlik ner, le'adlik ner shel Shabbat. Thank you so much, Joel and Andrea, for joining us this Shabbat evening to kindle the Sabbath lights. We continue with these words of welcome to Shabbat, Shabbat Shalom u'Mivorach, Shir HaMa'alot. We sing a song of ascents to God. I hope you'll join us. Shir Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Umevorach. Shabbat Shalom. Umevorach. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shalom. We join in L'chadodi, this joyous prayer of welcoming to Shabbat, seeing the Sabbath bride come into our midst for the first time on this new year. I hope you'll join us with a somewhat newer melody. L'chadodi, likrat kala, b'nei Shabbat nekabelo. L'chadodi, likrat kala, b'nei On page 28, we join in the Baruch Hu. If you feel comfortable doing so, I invite you at home to please rise. Page 30, we join together, if you're comfortable reading in the Hebrew. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher bidvaro ma'ariv aravim, b'chokhmah poteach she'arim u'vitvuna meshane itim, u'machalif et hazmanim u'mesader et hakochavim b'mishmerotehem barakia kirtzono. Borei yom v'layla golel or mipnei choshech v'choshech mipnei or. Umavir yom umevi layla, umavdil ben yom uvein layla, Adonai tzavot shemo, el chai v'kayam, tamid imloch aleinu leolam va'ed, Baruch atah Adonai, hamari v'aravim. Page 33. Wisdom and wonder, passion and instruction, story and symbol, all these things your Torah gives to us. And the more we devote ourselves to it, the more it grows and gives. What could be a truer token of your abiding love than this holiest of your works and the living language that gives it form? Baruch atah Adonai, ohev amo Yisrael. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Baruch Shem Kivod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. Please be seated. We continue with this version of Ve'ahavta in English. Love Adonai, your God, with all your heart, with all your mind, and with all your being. Love Adonai, your God, with all your heart, and with all your soul, and with all your mind. And these words which I command you on this day shall be in your heart, shall be in your heart. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them that they may be a symbol between your eyes. Write them on the doorposts of your house and upon your gates and upon your gates. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise. Teach them faithfully. Teach them faithfully unto your children. Speak of them when you sit in your house, when you walk by the way, when you lie down, and when you rise, and when you rise. So we make our way now to the prayer Mi Chamocha on page 40. This prayer is the one that always holds that special melody of the holiday, whether it be Rosh Hashanah, Passover, Shavuot, or even New Year's Day. I hope you'll join me. Mi chamocha ba'elim Adonai, mi chamocha nedar hagoyes, Yora teilot, Yora teilot, Osef
That was wonderful, Cantor Rhodes. Last week we had Let It Snow, and this week we had a special melody to Mi Chamocha for New Year's Eve. We continue with Tefillah, the prayer that connects us to our ancestors, beginning on page 46 and the subsequent pages. If you're comfortable in rising, I invite you to rise. Please join me. Adonai sefatai tiftachu fiya ki tahilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips that my mouth may declare your praise. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avotenu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzchak, Elohei Yaakov, Elohei Sarah, Elohei Rivka, Elohei Rachel, Elohei Leah, Ha'el Haggadol, Hagibor V'Hanoah, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, V'Koneh Hakol, V'Zocher Chasdei Avot V'Imahot, U'mevii Geula Livnei B'neihem, L'man Shemo V'Ahava. Melech Ozer u'Moshiach u'Magen, Baruch atah Adonai, Magen Avraham, Ezrat Sarah. Atah gibor le'olam Adonai, Mechayeh hakol, Atah Rab le'Hoshia, Mashiv haruach, U'morid hagashem, Mechalkel chayim b'chesed, Mechayeh hakol b'rachamim rabim, Somech noflim v'rofech olim, Umatir asurim, Umakayem emunato, Lishenei afar, Michamocha b'gevurot, Umidol melech, Melech menit umachayeh, Umatzliach Yeshua, V'ne'eman atah l'chachayot hakol, Baruch atah Adonai, Mechayeh hakol. Atah kadosh v'shimcha kadosh, u'kdoshim b'chol yom, yachalelucha selah. Baruch atah Adonai, Ha'el HaKadosh. We continue on the top of page 55. Please be seated if you are standing. May these hours of rest and renewal open our hearts to joy and our minds to truth. May all who struggle find rest on this day. May all who suffer find solace. May all who hurt find healing on this day. May all who despair find purpose. May all who hunger find fulfillment on this day. And may this day fulfill its promise. Baruch atah Adonai, Mekadesh HaShabbat. And on the top of page 57, Ritzei Adonai Eloheinu b'amcha Yisrael, u'tefilatam b'ahava tikabel. Ever-present one, may we, your people Israel, be worthy in our deeds and our prayer, wherever we live, wherever we seek you, in this land, in Zion restored, in all lands, you are our God, whom alone we serve in reverence. Baruch atah Adonai, she'otacha levadecha v'yirah na'avod. And on the top of page 59, as we look back over the year, even though in so many, many ways it's been an incredibly challenging year, we realize how much we have to be grateful for. God of goodness, we give thanks for the gift of life, wonder beyond words, for the awareness of soul, our light within, for the world around us so filled with beauty, for the richness of the earth, which day by day sustains us. For all these and more, we offer thanks. Baruch atah Adonai, hatov shimcha ulcha na'eh lehodot. We continue on page 60 with our prayer for peace, Shalom Rav.
Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Shalom Rav, Yisrael Amcha, Tasim Leolam. Ki atahu melech Adon, lechol hasham. moments of our own silent prayer and meditation. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who brings peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. Oh, say shalom. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. Oh, say shalom. When we think of bringing peace into our world, we also think of those in our community in need of peace, healing, shleimut, wholeness. Those so many suffering from illness, either of the body, mind, or spirit. Mi sheberach avotenu v'imotenu. May they find that complete and steady healing they so deserve and desire. This evening, our congregation is thinking of Alon ben Barbara, David Eliyahu, Hannah Esther bat Crandall, Nechama bat Chava v'Chanoch, Yehuda ben Fischel, Liam Bateman, Sally Bloomberg, Deborah Bodery, Henry Buttock, Benjamin Cohen Mars, Benifer Devar, Elizabeth Drabkin, Rachel Duff, Jason Eichman, Rochelle Einstein, Donald Ice, Michael Fisher, Amy Frederick, Jackie Goldman, Tito Gomez, Matthew Kaiser, Jamie Kidwell, Jill Landsberg, Louis Landsberg, Gregory Dimkin, Craig Leiding, Candice Murhan, Bino Solomon, Eddie Stein, Alina Stein, and Brian Strongen. And I invite you to share a name with our community as well at this time. We continue with our prayer for healing the Mishaberach. Mishaberach imotenu mekor and let us say, Amen.
I wanted to share a story with you tonight. It's a story that happened a very long time ago, and it's a story about a ship that was carrying a number of merchants. It had just set off on a long journey, and as it left the port, the merchants began to bring out their merchandise, to show it to each other, and to compare what each of them had with the wares of his competitors. So the first merchant opened up a big satchel and he pulled out the most beautiful silk scarf. He had many, many others in the satchel. And he said, look, aren't these the most beautiful scarves that you've ever seen? And everyone had to say and admit, of course, they were beautiful scarves. Another merchant said, yeah, those scarves are nice, but look at what I have here, a beautiful hand-blown glass vase. Be very careful. He passed it around to everyone else on the ship. In fact, the glass vase was absolutely beautiful. It refracted the light so you could see all the colors of the rainbow. Each one was spectacular. So the third merchant said, you know, these scarves and the vases are really, they're nothing special. But look what I have, beautiful gold and silver necklaces. These are unique, and I made each one myself. I've got the most beautiful necklaces in all the world. Well, the men began to shout at one another, each one insisting that his merchandise was superior to those of the other merchants. However, there was one thing that all three of them agreed on. They agreed that when they arrived at the end of their journey at the port, they would make a great fortune selling all of their wares. But almost as soon as they reached agreement about their prosperity, which was surely to come, the men began to yell at each other once again. This time, the argument was over who was going to earn the most money. So all this yelling is going on back and forth, but there was one man who didn't say a thing. He was a very quiet fellow, and he was just sitting in a corner on the ship. Hey, you, said one of the merchants, what do you have? Well, that merchant said, I have this scroll. It's a tiny scroll. It's called a Sefer Torah. So the other merchants began to laugh. Oh, what a loser, said one. Look what you've got, something that's of absolutely no value whatsoever. Who's going to want to buy that thing? It's just a little scroll. All the merchants laughed, and they made jokes, and they pointed their fingers at the quiet fellow. A couple of days into the journey, and from out of nowhere, a pirate ship appeared. Pirates, looking for treasures to steal, came bounding onto the ship that was carrying the merchants. The pirates found the scarves, and they threw the scarves into the pirate ship. They also found the beautiful glass vases, but of course they did not throw those, but they gently placed them onto the pirate ship. And then they discovered the gold and the silver, and you can imagine what they did with those as well. What have you got? They asked the quiet little fellow. The man showed them the Torah scroll, and of course they were not interested. They gave it back to him. They said, you know what? This is nothing. And the pirates returned to their ship, and they sailed away. After the pirates left, the merchants looked at one another. We're ruined, they cried. We have nothing. All of our money was tied up in our goods, and now our goods are gone. The merchants looked at the quiet guy who was sitting in the corner with his little Torah scroll, and they said nothing. The ship finally arrived at the port, and the merchants got off the ship. They had no money. They had no goods to sell so that they could make money. They were devastated. The quiet fellow also got off the ship. He walked through the town until he found a very small Beit Midrash, a house of study. he went inside and discovered a group of people sitting around, studying and debating a portion of the Torah. The students were discussing a complicated issue about which they had a question. They turned to the quiet man, who immediately was able to answer their question. Then they had another question. The quiet man answered that one too. After a half an hour of asking questions that the quiet man answered, the students at the Beit Midrash realized that the man was an incredible teacher. So they asked him not only to stay for dinner that night, but to be their teacher. The man accepted both offers, and that's when, looking out the window, he noticed a commotion outside. It was the merchants from the ship. They were waving and trying to get his attention. The man went outside. "You know, you have to forgive us," the merchants begged. "We were rude. We were mean to you. We were terrible. We're so sorry. And, we're wondering, well, could you please say a nice word for us so that we might get a meal in this nice little community?" "Of course," said the quiet fellow. He went back inside the Beit Midrash. "I have some friends here from the ship," he said to the people inside. "I'd love it if they could join us for dinner. Would that be all right?" The students agreed. Before the merchants had even finished the first course of their wonderful dinner, they realized that they had been wrong all along. They may have had wonderful silk scarves and beautiful glass vases and beautiful gold and silver jewelry, but it was the quiet fellow who had the most valuable thing of all. For he had something that could go anywhere. Its value was immeasurable, and its worth was clear, not just to the members of the Beit Midrash, but to everyone who looked for it and held it fast. The tiny Sefer Torah, the merchants realized, was indeed the most precious cargo of all. So I wanted to share that story with you this Shabbat because as we ended the old year yesterday, we're beginning a new year today. And so this Shabbat, we are concluding the first book of the Torah, the book of Genesis. And it's a reminder whenever we conclude a book of Torah of how Torah strengthens us and guides us. In fact, at the end of each book of Torah, we say, Chazak, Chazak, v'nitchazek. May we be strengthened. May we derive strength from the study of Torah. Torah guides us. We all know what a GPS is, a global positioning system, but the Torah is our JPS, our Jewish positioning system. We don't know what the upcoming year will bring, but we can be certain that our study of Torah will strengthen us during the upcoming year. It reminds us that we have experienced so much as a people and we have survived. In just a few moments, as we conclude our service with Elenu, when Cantor Rhodes opens the Ark, you'll see a small Torah scroll in the Ark. It's 300 years old, and it was given to Temple Road of Shalom just a couple of years ago. This Torah, we think, was used by a rabbi who carried it on horseback as he went from one Jewish community to another to teach Torah all throughout Central and Eastern Europe. And when we had our confirmation service last spring, one of our members of Temple Road of Shalom, who is a poet, Jacqueline Jules, was very moved as she watched our confirmation students pass this Torah from one to the other. And she wrote a poem about it that I would like to share with you, about the Torah that you will see in just a moment. This Torah is 300 years old. The Cantor tells the congregation. It traversed the Carpathian Mountain, witnessing weddings, births, funerals, and young minds studying the holy text quoted in the sanctuary today. Think of what this Torah has survived, the Cantor asks the congregation. Poverty, pogroms, Nazis. It spent years as a refugee, before being rescued by happenstance from a shelf in a shop in Israel. Now, carefully restored with antique ink, this Torah rests in our arms, trusting us to hold it against our hearts and hand it gently to one another in this century and centuries beyond. Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom and Yasher Koach, Rabbi Bernstein. We continue with Aleinu L'Shabeach on page 282. Aleinu L'Shabeach L'Adon HaKol, L'Teit Gedula L'Yotzer Bereshit, Shehu Notei Shamayim V'Yoser Haaretz, U'Moshav Yikaro B'Shamayim Mimah, U'Shchinatu Zo B'Gofei Meromim, Hu Eloheinu Einon, V'Anachnu Koreim, U'Mishtachavim U'Modim, Lifnei Melech Malchei HaMelachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Page 287. V'nemor v'haya Adonai lemelech al kol haaretz bayom hahu hi Adonai echad u'shemo
As we prepare to say the Mourner's Kaddish, we think of all those in our lives who are no longer living, who helped to make us the people that we are. And this week in particular, we send our condolences to the family of Marion Jackson, a member of Temple Road of Shalom, to the family of Paul Gehring, the brother-in-law and the uncle of Jim Kaplan and Julie Kaplan, and to the family of Marion Jacknow, the mother of Greg and Brian Jacknow. And we think as well of those members of our Temple Road of Shalom community who are in the period of Shloshim, mourning those members of their families who have died in the last 30 days. In particular, we think of Jean Bender, a member of Temple Road of Shalom, Naomi Starr, the mother of Alexander Starr, Rabbi Laszlo Berkowitz, the father of Julie Pajoli and Deborah Litwack, Sidney Duberstein, a member of Temple Road of Shalom, Susanna Dochi, mother of Judy Katona, Judith Diesenhaus, a member of Temple Road of Shalom, Norman Gordon Levin, the father of Deborah Jardot, and Naomi Horowitz, the mother of Lisa Horowitz. We also recall those, our loved ones, our family members, whose yahrzeits we are observing this week. Oscar Albert, Isidore Alexander, Merton Allen, Herbert Axelrod, Horace Banker, Rose Lee Berry, Farah Bergman, Jean L. Bernstein, Betty Bogorad, Diane Brower, Benjamin Budenstein, Evelyn Cohn, Claudette Ebner, Evelyn Ice, Eugene Engels, Benjamin Fried, Sandra Friedner, Pauline Galley, Patricia Geis, Edith Gerson, Solomon Goldfein, Eleanor Golding, Meyer Gottesman, Todd Guberman, Ethel W. Herman, Rachel Campius, Julius Katz, Lee Kaiser, Arthur Kessel, Carol Keel, Diana King, Fred Kriegstein, Howard I. Kruger, Josephine Kugel, Howard Lampall, Gerhard Lehman, Natalia Leons, Hannah Liebman, Vincent Minicelli, Jean Miller, Louis Morse, Martin Motu, Mary Pearson, Aaron Pinkert, Selma Collins, Beatrice Prince, Fred Pyatt, Abraham Brazen, Paul Rogers, George Rogers Jr., Henry Salkind, Frida Santo, Dorothy Shiro, Larry Seidel, Leonard Seltzer, Edward Schaefer, Steve Silverberg, Ida Silverstein, Gregory Skarupa, Alan Spiegel, Louise Springer, Faye Tatel, Melvina Weinberg, Rose Weitzman, Emma Winter, Ida Zeitlin, and Michael Zuntz. And if you are remembering a loved one this Shabbat, I invite you to share their name as well. If you are comfortable rising, I invite you to do so, and we join together in the words of the mourner's Kaddish. Yitkadal v'yitkadash Shemei Rabbah, Be'alma divra kirhute v'yamlich malchute, b'chayechon u'vyomechon, u'b'chaye dechol Beit Yisrael, ba'agola v'zman kori v'imru. Amen. Yehe Shemei Rabbah mevarach le'olam u'amei almayah, Yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalel shemei dekudesha brichu. Le'ela min kol birchata v'shirata, tushbachata v'nechemata, da'amiram v'alma v'imru. Amen. Yehe shalomo rabba min shemaya, v'chayim aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Oseh shalom b'mromav, Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu v'al kol Yisrael v'imru. Amen. Zichronam l'bracha. May the memories of all of our loved ones always be a blessing. Please be seated.
We begin the conclusion of our service on page 5 with the Kiddush. I hope maybe you have something sweet and celebratory with you to join together with me and Rabbi Bernstein as we bring in the sweetness of this first Shabbat of our new year. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, borei peri hagafen. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'rotzavanu. V'shabbat kodsho be'ahava u'vratzon hinchilanu, zikaron lema'aseh v'reishit, ki hu yom techila l'mikra'ei kodesh, zecher l'tziat Mitzrayim. Ki vanu v'chata, ve'otanu kidashta, mikol ha'amim, v'shabbat kodshecha, ve'ahava u'vratzon, hinchaltanu. Baruch atah Adonai, mekadesh haShabbat. Amen. L'chaim. Before we conclude our service with a final song and benediction, I would just like to wish a mazel tov to all of our January birthdays, which is something we usually do at our family service. So if you're watching and you have a birthday in January, happy birthday from us at Temple Rose Shalom to you. Thank you so much to the many, many people who've made this service possible. Rabbi Bernstein, it's great to lead together with you. Thank you to our family band, to Graham on sound, to our amazing tech team behind the scenes who just make it possible for us to celebrate Shabbat together with you at home. It's wonderful to be together. We conclude our service with Ma Yafeh Hayom, how beautiful indeed is this day. Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Ma Yafeh Hayom, Shabbat Shalom. Shabbat Shabbat of 2021. May we, as we transition into a new year and to a new book of our Torah, be ever strengthened by the words that it teaches us. Chazak, chazak, v'nitchazek, and Shabbat Shalom.